Are you a parent or educator and you're interested in introducing tabletop role-playing game to kids? Then stay tuned because this episode of Wizards of Eden podcast, we're going to talk about making TTRPGs fun for kids. So you may have heard, but if you haven't, tabletop role-playing games have a lot of benefits for kids. They teach social skills, they celebrate creativity, and they can be a fantastic teaching tool and way for families to have fun that keeps them off the screens. So recently, Ben and I became new dads, and we are obviously huge fans of tabletop role-playing games, and we wanted to create a game for ourselves to run with our own kids. So we've traveled all over the country doing school visits for our middle grade series, Dungeoneer Adventures. It's a fantasy series about a kid who goes to an academy that teaches you how to be an adventurer in the land of Eden. And on these trips, we get to spend time with thousands of students and talk about Land of Eam as well as tabletop role-playing games.
So there are a number of reasons why TTRPGs are really great for kids. First of all, I think they really spark imagination. I know it did for James and I growing up. I mean, it kind of led us down this path of being authors and wanting to create games.
It's like one of the foundational pieces to us becoming friends and collaborators.
And that's another reason, developing social skills and like just gaining a friend group. All of our friends played games together. We still play after 30 years. We're proof that these games can really help you make friends and develop social skills. But it's not only social skills, it's like problem solving skills, because when you're playing the game, you are thrust into these make-believe situations and you got to use your brain and imagination and critical thinking to come up with ways to overcome the challenges in front of you.
Right. And more educators are actually utilizing tabletop role-playing games in different settings as a way to bolster these social skills and creative problem-solving skills. Because tabletop role-playing games make that effort really, really fun and rewarding. And
yeah, you're doing it while you're playing. It's not like this learning setting where, kids feel like they're forced to do something. They're learning while they're playing.
I'm just reminded of these old math games that I used to play, like on our old Gold Star computer, where you're promised that you're going to play a game, but you're actually just doing like basic arithmetic and a DOS screen over and over again. And then you see like a tiny cut screen of a pixelated starship fly through an asteroid field or whatever. And how tabletop role playing are so different.
I want to tell you something about those, because I always felt so lost. I didn't have a computer at home at that time, and like all these other kids would be blasting through it, and I would just feel like, what am I doing? Like,
what is this? This isn't a game at all.
That's not how I felt when we were playing D&D.
Not at all, because the learning is the playing. And that's what really drove Ben and I's friendship, our creative collaboration, and why we want to share that with our own kids with the Dungeoneer Adventures RPG.
We've got 4 core tenets that we want to go through that basically pare down our approach to developing this game for kids.
That's right.
The first thing is that we really made an effort to reduce the complexity of the game, keeping things really simple so kids can pick up and play pretty quickly. What we did was we streamlined the mechanics of Land of Eam, the core rulebook. And if you're not familiar with Land of Eam, it is a role-playing game that, while you could easily play with kids, if you spent some time to teach them, it's geared more towards 12 and up, I think would more easily get the rules. So what we did is we really stripped down, took out all the numbers, and we have custom dice so kids can just roll and see immediately the results and just work. They don't have to roll to see if they work like in Land of Eam. And so that's our approach. We're stripping everything down.
Strip down the complexity, because like we were just talking about those math games, you're not going to teach your kid effectively arithmetic using a tabletop role-playing game. The number crunching is not, I think, the core learning experience that's going to be there for them. At least it wasn't for me, and it's probably not for educators that are using tabletop role-playing games in a classroom setting. So if you want to get at the social skills and you want to get the creativity, focus the game on the creativity and the social skills.
Yeah, whenever I've played with kids, playing like a session of D&D or something, you go into the game, you have all these abilities written down, and they're like, they immediately want to do something more creative than what's on their character sheet. And so you have to strip it down in the moment. Like, you can't just play D&D out of the box with a child. So our approach is to come out of the gate with a stripped down version.
Right. Stripping out the mechanics, or as many mechanics as makes sense, eliminating the number crunching and make abilities that just work is a lot more fun for a kid. If they have this creative idea and they want to do it, or they see an ability on their character card and they want to just do it, rewarding the kid for identifying then that moment that they can use that ability or they can do that creative action is really what it's all about. And that goes directly into our second item, which is encouraging and celebrating the creativity during the actual gameplay. And this is really important because as a GM, anytime we believe that the GM must be the player's biggest fan. They celebrate what's going on as they progress through the story. And when you're running a game for kids, they are going to have, just like Ben said, when he's running his games, they're going to have all kinds of creative ideas that are going to solve the problems in front of them. Stuff that we could never conceive of because kids, they say the darndest things, as they say. And so celebrating that creativity and rolling it forward so that they're interacting with each other and solving these problems is one of, if not the most important element of developing a game and running a game for kids.
And one way we do this is by having a dice mechanic that promotes creativity. So this is directly taken from Land of Eam. It's not just a pass-fail mechanic. There are gradations of success, and sometimes you fail, but it pushes the story in a fun and interesting way. So we're not saying that there can't be any failure in a game and everything has to work, but the failure has to push the story forward in a fun way.
Yes, that's right. That's well said. You want to give an example?
For instance, let's say the characters are faced with a classic, chasm in front of them, and they all have to jump. So they each, roll their dice to see their results, and one of them in our game gets an F+, which means you failed, but there's some sort of benefit that happens. Well, maybe the benefit is that they're hanging from the ledge and someone has to grab them and pull them up in time. I mean, you can have other threats that are making this more complicated. Maybe there's, bats flying around. That's just one example.
Right. And that example is very action forward too. And I would say that leads really well into the third tenet of what we want to talk about for making TTRPGs effective for kids is that you're not going to have a 4-hour game with an 8-year-old. The games should be structured to be short. So 30 minutes to an hour would be a totally acceptable and normal length of time for a game of Dungeoneer Adventures or any TTRPG that you're playing with kids.
Because anything beyond that, and kids are going to be fidgety. They're going to be looking around.
Fidgety, and you always want to you always want to end on a high note, right? So you have a really fun 30 minutes. The kids are going to want to play again. They're going to want to experience that again. But if it goes on and on and on, you're going to be in trouble because you'll lose their attention spans, and it gets tougher and tougher, especially with games that are theater of the mind.
And this is a really important point because the culture of TTRPGs is that groups play for like 4, 5, 6 hours at a time, and that is just not possible with kids. I would say 30 minutes, 45 minutes is the ideal, and an hour would be pushing it, but it will vary between kids, of course. But like James was saying, you really want to make it impactful and not dwell on things for too long. And so in our game, we have guidelines for each adventure written out with like various plot points and all this stuff. And our goal is to really make it short and sweet and impactful.
Right. Like the mechanic of an F+, that's a really effective way to propel the story forward because even if a character fails, that plus represents a way to divert from the failure to a success so that you can keep going and get across that chasm quickly instead of find yourself stuck at that one spot in the adventure. And that said, that is a good segue into the last element, number 4, which is there's a lot of you in this discussion. We're talking about you. Well, we're really talking about parents and educators running the game. And the game has to be designed in a way, at least we feel, that make it very, very easy to pick it up and play these adventures. So for Dungeoneer Adventures, for example, we designed quests that are quick and efficient, but we also built another sandbox setting for Dungeoneer Academy, which outlines the characters that are going to be associated with the quest itself, bullet points for narrative beats, so that you can look at it, glance at it, review it, and run the game relatively effectively with not this big brick of text. It's not going to be this giant campaign book where you've got all these story elements and all these whatever. It's designed to be easy to pick up, easy to use, easy to interpret. And we think that is really critical to making tabletop role-playing games more accessible to kids. Because if it's not accessible to parents and educators, if it's too much to invest in, then it's going to be tough to just have a pickup game on Friday night or suddenly decide that after your bike ride, you'll play a game of Dungeoneer Adventures on the weekend or whatever. So those are like the 4 things that Ben and I felt were really important, because those are the things we wanted to be able to run games for our own kids. And it's the things that we've discovered were successful when we've run games for kids in the past. And it's what we started to hear when we were traveling with the Dungeoneer Adventures series, talking about our process and games and writing.
Totally. I don't have much to add to that last point.
So there you have it. That's how our approach to running TTRPGs for kids. And if you are interested in running games for kids, for your kids, or if you're an educator or you work in a club and work with kids.
So one thing to add to parent-friendly design, and it's sort of kid-friendly design, and it goes along with reducing complexity, is that what we have in the game and what really works is out-of-the-box characters that you could just play immediately. So you don't have to waste time or a lot of thought on all the mechanics of character creation, because in RPGs, that's really a complex thing sometimes. And it's a hurdle to get over, to grok all the rules. So what we have are
Session 0 with 4 kids is not going to be fun.
Right.
Or maybe it will be. I don't know. We'll put those rules in there,
I think
too.
for more veteran kids who have got the hang of things, and so we have those rules, but out of the box, just choose a character. We've got character cards, we've got item cards, adversary cards, all these things that will just be play aids at the table and easy for parents to use.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So if you are interested in running a TTRPG for kids, we are currently running our Kickstarter for the Dungeoneer Adventures Beginner's Game and the Underlands Sandbox, which is the expansion to the Land of Eam core game. You can check it out today. You can pledge, and we would really love your support.
Thanks. Bye-bye now.